What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one, we are back with the Girl Gone Luncheon channel. Y'all go make sure to check out her channel, check out her videos. She has absolutely incredible content. I will leave her video, the original video link down in the description section. But we are reacting to Will American Patriotism Be Its Downfall? I don't know if it'll be its downfall, but I'm very intrigued now in the video. USA versus UK patriotism compared. Before we dive in, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to smash subscribe, get a video a thumbs up, and let's get right to it.
Every single day in school, every American child in public education is required to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance, placing their hand over their heart and reciting it to the American flag. When I say this to an American audience, there is no recoil, there is no shock, there is no horror. This is just what we do. But when I moved to the UK, suddenly I saw how other people might view this tradition as creepy, as culty, as potentially brainwashing. And it's this fascinating difference in how America perceives itself and its patriotism, or nationalism, as we'll get into in a minute, versus how the Brits I know go about expressing their love and loyalty to their country that's got me thinking. If you want answers regarding certain political movements, government decisions, or overall chaos that America brings upon itself, maybe the answer isn't in who voted for who. Maybe it's not in the two-party system. Maybe it's in the classrooms of 5-year-olds who know the Pledge of Allegiance better than their own address. First, let's do a quick...
I mean, that's absolute facts. As a 5-year-old, I had the Pledge of Allegiance down pat. And I can see, it seemed natural. Like, here, it just seemed... I thought every, country had their own Pledge of Allegiance. I literally did. And when I found out, I started reacting to other countries. And I saw how other countries saw that as culty and stuff. It makes you start to think, like, yeah, it is a bit culty to make 5-year-olds recite the Pledge of Allegiance every single day. Like, I understand loving your country. I love the USA. We got a lot of problems, but I love the USA. But should we be forcing our 5-year-olds every single morning to pledge their allegiance to the United States? I mean, it's a little culty. They're right.
Quick rundown on how a love, loyalty, or obsession with one's country is expressed in the USA versus the UK before we dive into how an aggressive patriotism turned nationalism is potentially the seedy underbelly of the American system. In the USA, the following things are extremely common. Having an American flag outside your home, American flags outside schools and businesses, wearing red, white, and blue on patriotic holidays like the 4th of July, but also a lot of times just in general, having shirts that have the American flag on it. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in school. Standing to listen to the national anthem every morning in school. Playing the national anthem before sporting games. Having multiple national songs that every kid knows. And I mean multiple. If you were to ask me to name them off the top of my head, I'd keep you here for hours. I can recite to you My Country 'Tis of Thee, You're a Grand Old Flag, Proud to be an American. There is no shortage here.
To be an American. Where at least I know I'm... Alright, y'all didn't.
In the UK, it's a slightly different story here from the jump because there is the fact that the UK is made up of 4 countries, so we have the national pride, i.e. go Team GB when it comes to the Olympics, but then you have country-specific pride, so Scottish flags in tradition, or trying to keep the Welsh language going by teaching it to your children. Patriotism within the UK is often expressed when it comes to sport. The England flags only come out really when England is doing well in a worldwide sporting event, typically football. Perhaps people will fly the Union Jack in times of national crisis, i.e. a pandemic, or during a Jubilee event. What is decidedly absent here is endless national songs, any sort of Pledge of Allegiance in schools, or flags being flown just in day-to-day life outside people's homes. And there is history and context here. For example, the English flag, the St. George's flag, was associated with far-right groups starting in the 1970s, so the nuances of this topic are more complex than a short video, but the main point still stands. But does this mean that Brits aren't patriotic? They're certainly not known for it, but I'd argue that actually in some definitions of patriotism, Brits are patriotic. It's just that Americans are something else entirely. Patriotism means a devoted love, support, and defense of one's country, and if you get any Brit talking about what they love about the UK, you'll often come across these ideals. From the NHS to Britain's incredible contributions to society when it comes to invention and technology, to the gorgeous countryside, I do get the impression here that many are patriotic, but patriotic in a sense of a love for the place they were born and desire for it to thrive. Of course, especially in England, they might understate it, and you won't necessarily know what they mean if you're not from here, because they'll also be the first ones talking the country down. But when you read between the lines and learn how Brits actually communicate, my impression is that many do feel a support towards the UK. Again, this is a complex topic because of differing cultural values and how we express that. And I would argue that some Brits would say they don't necessarily feel comfortable being proud to be British, because pride is something you feel in something you've accomplished, when it was sheer coincidence that they were born British. But after living through the pandemic in the UK...
I mean, that is a fact. It is sheer coincidence. I mean, you don't control where you're born. But I feel like, I guess it may have been beaten into me. I am proud to be American. Like, I am... I'm like I said, don't get me wrong. I don't have that blind nationalism where I'm supported no matter what. America has a lot of issues. America has a dark history. There's a lot of things that are wrong with America, but I think there's a lot of great things about America. I think the U.S. I don't know if it's a place where so many ambitious people are literally everybody's trying to get up there to the top. And of course, most of us will never reach the top, no matter how hard we work, no matter how ambitious we are. But I feel like it's a place where it's more of an entrepreneurial mindset. It's more of innovation and creating and things of that nature. And I'm not saying that no other countries have that, because so many other countries have that, but the U.S. has that as well, and I feel like I am proud of that. That's an amazing thing, and so I am proud to be an American, but I still realize all the issues we got.
UK, regardless of what the government was up to, you couldn't convince me that British people aren't patriotic, in the sense that they're willing to band together far more than some other countries are for the greater good of each other and the country's resources. And to me, that is patriotic. Now, in America, many people are patriotic, of course, with a similar affinity for the US and a peaceful sense that still seeks to exist within the greater makeup of the globe in a tolerant way. But what most Americans would consider patriotic could actually be defined as nationalism. And this has a more negative connotation and is what is associated with some of the most horrific acts in the history of the world. Nationalism, by definition, is the policy or doctrine of asserting the interests of one's own nation viewed as separate from the interests of other nations or the common interests of all nations.
It's a lot of nationalism here then. I didn't know the exact definition of nationalism, but if that is, there's a ton of nationalism here. I guess that people call patriotism, but when you break it down, it's definitely nationalism.
I.e., America first. America only. Nationalism is not just saying, I love America and am proud to be from here. It's often saying, America is the best country in the entire world, better than all of the other countries, and we are only interested in what serves America. And I'm not here to discuss political arguments. There's definitely something to be said for wanting your own home and people to prosper. I think every country wants that for their population, and there are always hard lines that you have to draw on how much you prioritize your own country versus helping other nations or being involved in global agreements. But nationalism can be extremely dangerous in two main ways. Firstly, because it does not accept the fact that we coexist on the planet with billions of other people who do not live in our country. When you aggressively put your country first, above and beyond working with others and working together with other countries to make the world a better place, you can come across as very narrow-minded and isolationist and selfish. But more importantly than how you're perceived, nationalism can be weaponized and easily used by corrupt people in power to persuade and get people to believe in dangerous ideologies. There is a reason that overall the level of nationalism in Europe declined after World War II, because people saw just how easy it was else for somebody who preyed on German nationalism to commit the unthinkable. And with
That's such a freaking fact, bro. She is absolutely spot on when explaining this, and I get the title now. Will American patriotism be its downfall? But what we really mean is American nationalism. Yeah, I feel like it's again beat into, as much as the Pledge of Allegiance is beat into you as a kid in school growing up. It's almost beat into you as much that America's the best country in the world. We're the greatest at everything. We're the best. We're the best. We're the best. And you start to believe it because we don't really know about the rest of the countries. It almost feels like we are isolated from the rest of the world sometimes. So we don't get news and media from other countries. And when we do, I feel like it shows like the worst of other countries more so than how great other countries are. And it wasn't until I got to start reacting to different countries where I got to see like, wow, like there's a lot of amazing countries in the world who are a lot better at certain stuff than we are. Who life there is a lot more affordable for a higher quality of life than it is here. So you start to see that. But a lot of people still have that nationalism to where like America's the best, the greatest, at everything, and that's it. And a lot of nationalism in terms of people wanting America to prosper and achieve over everyone else. Like, don't get me wrong, I want us to prosper here, but I also want the rest of the world to prosper. And I think that the best way to go about that is by us cooperating with the rest of the world and everybody cooperating together to make the world a better place. Do I want America's interests to be served? Yes, I'm here. I live here. I would love as much benefits and anything as possible. But I also don't want to be isolated from the rest of the world and seem like we don't care about anyone else. We just care about us. So I get where she's saying.
With support as well. Someone who is simply patriotic, who pulls out the flag at the football game and generally loves their country but isn't overzealous, is going to be harder to persuade of any particular ideology than someone who has grown up reciting a pledge every day to a flag, who is surrounded by an idea that your country is the greatest and is conditioned to not question this. And again, let's bring some nuance into this because I'm not saying, oh, flags are bad. I've seen plenty of episodes of Bondi Rescue, which is a really interesting show about lifeguards on Bondi Beach in Australia, to know that Australians also like a bit of flag waving, particularly on Australia Day, or maybe fashioned into shirts, hats, etc., to show off their love for their country. I'm not criticizing or putting forward the idea that Americans are wrong for loving their country. I'm American and consider that my first identifier when asked about my nationality, despite having a British passport and living here. I love a lot of things about America. What I am saying, though, is that because of all the factors combined, American patriotism can turn easily into nationalism, which can lead to darker ideologies and create a problem quite quickly for America itself and the rest of the world. It's like being British, to bring us back to our comparison and contrast, having lived in the UK for over 10 years. Being British is something that you are, but being American, that's something you do. And if you don't wave the flag, if you don't say the pledge, well, then you're seen as not being patriotic, which is perhaps one of the worst things
You're basically seen as anti-American if you don't do these things. Like, you don't love the country.
To be seen as in certain parts of the US. Being un-American is worse than being labeled as mean or cruel or stupid. And so that's part of the problem. When the highest moral standing you can reach is one related to how much you say you love your country, it leaves room for the bullies to not look as bad, because it doesn't really matter if they're not kind or compassionate when that's not the measure of morality that many are using. In school, I remember one of my classmates refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and he was punished for it by missing recess. Many Americans would tell you that this is because it is considered disrespectful to the people who have served the country and fought for its freedom. But Britain also places emphasis on respect for its veterans.
I feel like I absolutely respect all of those who have fought for America, past and present. They did something very courageous that I don't think I could do, so I pay the utmost respect. But I think she's, like she said, they are fighting for the freedom. And that's the freedom to, if you don't want to stand for the pledge, they fought for that freedom to stand as well as to not stand. if you don't want to do certain things, they fought for your freedom to have the ability to do that. So don't think that you have to do these things. And it's absolutely ridiculous that a child would be punished for not standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance. That is very cult-like. That is very, very culty. Yeah, I don't think that would fly today. I think parents would get involved today. For sure, I'd be very upset. But that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't.
And respect for the people who did fight for the UK during many wars, this place is practically filled with memorials and commemorations. And yet, many Brits would give the Pledge of Allegiance a side eye. So it's clearly possible to show respect in other ways. I guess my main point is, do not underestimate the importance that Americans place on doing acts of patriotism. And in some ways, it makes sense as to how they got there. America doesn't have a long history. It doesn't have a shared religion. It doesn't have long traditions or lots of shared bloodlines. Most Americans have only one thing in common: being American. The entirety of the country and the immigration here was founded on the desire to be American, to buy into the idea of the American dream or the better life. From the Puritans to the immigration waves that would come later, being American is seen ideologically within the country as a huge privilege. And on top of that, in a nation of immigrants, there is an idea that you have to start building that shared experience in order to build the nation. Many countries within Europe have not had to do that. But to form a cohesive union within the nations, Americans believed that they needed to get people identifying as being American, not where their parents came from. So you can see the roots of it in many ways.
Agreed.
It's just that the intensity of this mission never really slowed down. And it's this outlook that separates what happens in America versus other countries who are also filled with people who do love their country and have a fondness for it. Patriotism can be quite a wholesome thing. It's the pride you feel when your country walks in at the Olympic Games and you want your athletes to succeed on the world stage. But nationalism, which is far more common in America, is a much darker thing that can lead entire nations into chaos and destruction because they're conditioned to follow. And
Exactly, to blindly follow at that, to not question anything, to just blindly follow. And that's always terrible, no matter what it is. To blindly follow anyone is wild to me. To never question things, to not think about if it's right or wrong, or if how you feel about it, to just blindly, that'll always be dangerous.
Because there's this underlying idea that they deserve to do exactly what they want without regard to other people on the planet because they come first. And to be clear, nationalistic parties have risen in other countries around the world. It's just that the scale of how it happens in America is much different right now, rather than fringe groups or a small percentage of the population. And other countries also have their own practices that many in Europe might find disturbing. Based on my research, Mexican schools do a flag ceremony every Monday, and it was popular in Brazil to sing the national anthem in school from at least the 70s to the 90s. But I would argue that we notice it more with the US because of its status as a world power. There is no denying, regardless of whether Americans feel like boasting about it or not, America definitely has an undeniable widespread influence and a dominant position in the world when it comes to financial markets, military, and political power. But the saying is that with great power comes great responsibility, not just to America and to its flag, but in my opinion, to the world at large. But unfortunately, I'm not running the country, and I'm actually not old enough to be president yet, so you'll have to give me some time. As always, I hope you learned a little something that might explain world events, and comment with your thoughts down below. Let's start the discussion. Do you feel patriotic? Let us know, and which country are you from? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely feel patriotic, but not. I definitely wouldn't say that I condone nationalism in any sense of the word. I'm very intrigued to hear what you guys think about the video. That's all we have. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the next one. I'll see y'all next time.